Hi, this is John Rowell for the Rowell Report. Today is Thursday, September 25th, 2025. And imagine that you're sitting home minding your own business, maybe watching the TV, maybe catching up on news, maybe working on some project around the house, and you hear the doorbell ring. You go down to the door and you open the door and find there's an angry neighbor there. Um, and they're looking at you and they're pointing a finger and they're gesticulating and you can hardly understand them. They're so hysterical, so angry, and they accuse you of having a vicious dog and your dog bit them, and you kind of think twice about what you're going to say because you don't have a dog. So anyway, you say I don't have a dog, and they said you're lying, you're making it up. This is your narrative. This is your propaganda. And they say, well, you keep on doing this, and you're gonna see what I'm gonna report you, and you'll be in big trouble. So they leave, and you go back, and you're kind of scratch your head. What's going on? I think people today are a little crazy. So you go back and you're reading a book, or you go back to your program, or you go back to catching up on news, or you're working on some woodworking project and you're having fun, and suddenly another ring at the door. The doorbell rings. You go over to the door, and another neighbor, right next to the neighbor who accused you of having a vicious dog, um, comes to the door and said, you know, you had a plane, you had a foam plane that broke a window, and in my house. So anyway, they said, and you're gonna be in big trouble if you keep on doing this. So you realize, oh, you do have you do have foam planes, but they're about this big, and they don't fly very far, and they would never reach that neighbor's house. So you're like, these people that keep on accusing me of stuff, pretty crazy. So then you go back and you're back doing, whatever you were doing, and you're just trying to enjoy your day, and you're not bothering anyone. Then finally, someone rings the doorbell again, and this time, they said, well, um, that they were watching TV, but you're jamming their TV, and you're up to no good, and you're using some special device that you've planted in their house to interrupt their internet and to interrupt their communications. And they said, well, we're gonna call the, I heard all the other neighbors, and the neighbors that accuse you before of the dog or the foam plane breaking the window. They show up and they all say, you know what, we all agree that you're a danger, and we're gonna report you, we're gonna put you away. It's time for you to go to jail, or we're gonna fine you, or we're gonna block your driveway so you can't go to work or do anything on your vehicle. So so they start making threats and everything, and then you wonder, uh, all these crazy accusations coming from neighbor X, Y, and Z, and they all live close to each other, and you see that these guys all talk to each other when they're raking the leaves, or they're taking care of their lawn, and or washing their car. So you see, you know what, I think they got together and came up with these crazy accusations, and they decided to try to make something stick. But I'm not gonna give them any more attention, because this is crazy. And if I just give them attention, it looks like I'm actually doing what they say I'm doing. Well, anyway, this is kind of like what's going on with this whole these Russia accusations about GPS jamming and foam drones that fly, 1,200 kilometers when they're made to go 600 kilometers, about crazy drones with lights showing up at, airports in Denmark, about drones flying into Romania. This is why the NATO countries get together in their meetings, is to plan out things like this. But man, they need to get a better plan, because these accusations are so flimsy. So I'll just go down the line here, and we have Politico, which initially reported this GPS scare as a Russian, um, hybrid attack, a perfect example of a hybrid attack, putting the life of Ursula von der Leyen in danger. And these hybrid attacks have to stop. We have to stop Russia. We have to get together and we have to stop them. So anyway, here's the story from Politico. Now they see that this story was so full of holes, they have to come out, but they don't say, oh, by the way, the information we put out initially was a lie, was made up, was part of a hysteria campaign against Russia. But they say the Russia allegations are starting to unravel. So there's van der Leyen and her whole um, ridiculous attempt to convince the world that Russia was somehow hiding in some, bunker in Bulgaria, and they were jamming her plane as she was trying to land. So anyway, um, initially the Bulgarians and um, and the European Union put out this narrative that Russia was jamming the GPS signal of the plane, and then they had to use paper maps, and they had to fly over the airport an hour, even though um, it was a perfectly clear day. And so, um, but needless to say, the plane that van der Leyen was flying on had a backup system. That doesn't require paper maps. In fact, they don't have any paper maps on this plane. They don't need it, because the backup system has much better up to date maps, and it's a terrific backup system. So there was never any there. So then we get this. What came out immediately after this accusation, Flight Radar 24, revealed that the data showed the GPS signal was never lost. Okay, so Politico could have checked this information before they put out the article, but they decided to put it out because it just seems so real, so authentic. But anyway, needless to say, there's actually people out there who check this information and who were able to acquire information. And then suddenly the Bulgarians, oh, we didn't say anything. And then the European Union spokesperson, they're like, well, it was the Bulgarians who said something. So it was like, the EU said the Bulgarians said something, and the EU said, no, we didn't say anything. We didn't we didn't put out any information. So basically, the story that van der Leyen put out didn't fly, and then they're scrambling to cover for each other and say, well, we know it happened, and Russia did it, even though the information that we have is that it never happened, and it was just a made up story. So anyway, this whole question of the GPS jamming, that was the first um, false story to fall. Um, then they put out the story of this aggressive in violation of Polish airspace by these foam drones, and they're called Gerbera drones. These are the dummy drones that they put up um, before they send in the real drones to kind of absorb the air defense. So anyway, these are cheap little foam drones that don't weigh very much, and they have a maximum range of 600 kilometers. This is in Reuters, so you can see this is from Reuters. 600 kilometers. If we measure a distance of 600 kilometers from inside Russia, we don't even get to the Polish border. The Polish border from inside Russia, one of the closest locations where they could have launched it is over 700 kilometers. So um, this again is a total non-starter. This is another made-up story. Basically, what happens is these drones fly and fly and fly, and they try to absorb up all the air defense. And then when they run out of fuel, they just fall on the ground. So you can see from the images of these foam drones when they were in Poland in a field that they were all duct taped together. So this is the result of these drones. When they run out of fuel, they will just, go headlong into whatever is in front of them, and they'll bust up probably into pieces because it's just styrofoam. Styrofoam really has, not much strength to it. So styrofoam, you can use that in building materials, but once you put that on a plane and it starts, running into trees or running into cement, or it would run into some hard ground at a high speed because it's run out of fuel and it's nosediving, it's gonna break apart. So obviously, they had to duct tape it together, and that was pretty amazing. Just the seeing the duct tape, you knew that the whole story was made up, and so, but the fact that its range is 600 kilometers, it wouldn't even have reached the Polish border. And there was one of these foam drones that had gone approximately about 1,400 kilometers. So, really, what it looked like was they picked up a whole bunch of these drones from the Ukrainians, crossed the border, and then as they were going into Poland, they were just dumping them off on random fields and then letting people discover them and then reporting, oh, we found a foam drone in Poland. The Russians are coming. The Russians are coming. So, anyway, that's the second story to bite the dust. So here comes the whole story about Romania, and we don't. They never presented any evidence to sustain this whole narrative. So this was another non-starter, but you can see NATO country A and NATO country B and NATO country C and NATO country D. And they get together at all these meetings and they decide, oh, we got to come up with all these narratives because the United States is pivoting to China, pivoting to Venezuela, pivoting to Iran, and they want us to take care of the security, and that makes us very fearful because each and by ourselves we're just weak countries, and we couldn't fight our way out of a wet paper bag, let alone fight off the Russian army. Well, we're going to put up a strong front. We're going to say we're united, and the force of NATO, everyone together, is undefeatable. So anyway, but if it was so strong, if NATO was so scary, why would they have to come up with all these stupid narratives? And the most recent one is the whole situation in Denmark. And they got these drones and they fly by the airport and they got lights and they're blinking. And, if it was like 40, 50 years ago, probably people would say, the UFOs are, circling, Mars is attacking. So, but no, since they want everyone to hate Russia and point the finger at Russia, they said Russia is involved. Russia is, they snuck into the country with a suitcase full of drones. And they're, with they light up and they fly up and they fly down and they fly this way and they fly that way. And they're flying around the airport and they're cutting off all the flights. Well, it's obvious that somebody's flying a drone, but what proof do you have that is that it's Russia? So anyway, Russia denied the involvement and said the Russian side firmly rejects the absurd speculations of involvement in the incidents. So this is what it is. We're getting to this information, by the way, is in Deutsche Welle, and I'll put all the information below in the description so you can go to the articles if you would like to consult further. So anyway, here Russia denied involvement as NATO chief says drones can be attacked. Although Danish officials did not directly accuse Russia of being behind the incidents, I actually heard Danish people suspecting Russian influence. So, anyway, the this involvement is so absurd. They're going to such absurd lengths to try to maintain the United States involved in the Russia-Ukraine conflict to keep them there. And so they want to say Russia is an imminent danger to every single NATO country. But, if they were going to do that, they would have had to come up with a better narrative and better evidence. But they don't have any. Russia's not interested in starting a war with Russia. And they're certainly not going to be flying drones around airports and they light up and they do all kinds of special things. So, anyway, that is my report for today, my second report. So if you like this report, please hit the like button, subscribe, and share. Thank you for supporting independent media journalism, and I hope you have a good day. Bye bye.